Well, hello, family, friends, and YouTube. Today I thought I'd discuss CE materials, misleading information. Towards the end of the video, I would talk about misleading information, but I basically wanted to discuss, you've seen them, body armor, you got all these different types. This is, this here's an elbow, and then you're looking for the CE rating. What does a CE ratings mean? Here is a shoulder protection and knee protection. This one's super, super thick, but this one here is super thin, but they both have a rating of 2. What does all that mean? Does thickness matter? What do I wear? A lot of people ask me, hey, when you ride out there, what do you I dress for the slide. So, and basically it all depends on the speed. It really does. It depends on how fast I'm riding. If I'm riding just typically around town, my go-to jacket, and I've covered up some of the brand material so I'm not trying to attack any particular company, but here is my basically everyday riding jacket. As long as it ain't 100 degrees outside, this is what I wear. It's typical of most of these type of textile garments. It uses Cordura as the abrasion. It uses some basic padding in there. Is the padding, it says CE padding inside here. It says CE, but it doesn't give a rating or anything. There's no certifications that come with it or anything like that. It's misleading. This is not a CE rated body armor. So, but I can wear that. I feel comfortable wearing this around town when I'm doing local rides or stuff like that. Then I decided, I'm gonna buy me an entire suit for when I'm out on the road. And I got this right here. Oh man, you just feel like when you put this on that you at the racetrack. And there's no way to remove the inner lining or anything like that. So you got the back pads, of course, you got all the elbow protection and all that. And believe it or not, this is extremely hot. And the padding in it, not even CE rating. I got an entire jumpsuit that makes me look like a zebra when I'm out on my bike. And it's made of the abrasion type material. Starting to see a pattern of made in China. Then, of course, this is my summer jacket. Ooh, you gotta love this. This is summer riding right here. This is summer riding. Oh, look at that. You get out there on that road, you going, boy. It's something else. This ain't protecting me from nothing. All this mesh that it has in it to keep me cool. All this garment here basically does is keep my elbow and shoulder pads in place. Let the wind blow through my jacket. Will it help with a little bit of an abrasions? I'm assuming more than blue jeans or something would. But what is that? You can't find anything in the label that tells you that the material is highly rated or CE approved. You're not going to. Why? Made in China. But there is something that they have. There's a label. There's a label right here. And I'm going to cover you. Let's read that label so you can see what the focus is on certain companies and the products that they make. Warning. Please read carefully before use. Double exclamation point. No garment can protect against serious injury from foreseeable impacts, abrasions, or collisions. This garment is not certified to be fireproof, fire resistant, or fire retardant, and users should use extreme caution near sources of heat or open flames. No garment can prevent serious injuries, burns, or even death. What do you think they're trying to say? I'm guessing, just a guess, that this jacket's going to catch on fire. This is, you get around some heat. Be careful driving up to the gas station because this thing's about ready to explode based on that only label in the entire jacket. And that's what it says, other than the label that says double XL, which is the size. That's it. Don't get around fire. Don't smoke a cigarette. Be careful or you're going to explode. Now, what do I wear? Again, a lot of people say, well, when we see you out riding, you wearing like blue jeans or tactical pants. Yes, I actually do wear black tactical pants. They're they're actually cut resistant. Nothing's really stab resistant. I can put an ice pick through anything. But they say you dress kind of casual. You got a t-shirt on, you're rolling and stuff like that. That's what you see. My protective garment that I wear, for example, is right here. This here is an undergarment. You put this on underneath your clothes. And I also have these, which throw everybody off because you don't see these. These are leggings with protection in it. And guess what? There's triple A protection. So you would be able to just simply look in this garment, and I don't want to give away the brand, but you can immediately go right here and you can see the label. CE, triple A approved. And I wear this underneath my clothes. I wear the leggings more than anything because if I'm traveling at low speeds and stuff like that, I don't always put the top on, but the top is actually very cool. It's very, you can get a good breeze through it and all that. I could just wear it all the time. I don't know why I don't, but it is level 3. Technically, it claims to be level 3 plus, which is not really a rating, but we'll go into that in a moment. But that's what I wear. I wear undergarment. I wear under protection underneath your regular clothes, so that way you can look and ride the way you want, and no one knows that you are heavily protected. Again, CE level 3. So for abrasion resistance. So anyway, let's move this video forward and let's go in and talk about where these standards come from, what does it mean, and we'll start off with CE. You're looking on it on a tag. You've probably seen these tags. They're all over the place. You can see where they have single A, double A, or and what does the CE mean? That's the logo they use. It stands for, let's say this in French, it stands for Conformité Européenne. But that translates to European conformity. Now we're going to go and talk about the standards that came into place in Europe. It was started off with a directive that eventually led into these standards. And there were old standards, and then it led into a new revised version for protective gear for motorcycles so that they could be sold on the market. So let's go ahead and just give you a rundown of what this stuff means as we proceed forward. All right, you can't begin to go into the European norms and standards of how CE came about without first going to the grandfather of it all, which was Dr. Woods. Dr. Woods out of Cambridge University in the the mid 1900s to the early 2000s, he conducted this study on how to properly test motorcycle riding apparel, clothing abrasion testing, and he's the one that developed these gadgets and all these things that you're going to see later on as we proceed through the video. But 1997 is when Jeff Stone interviewed Dr. Woods about how he tests. And you could see the primitive tools that he was basically using, the sandpaper, how to create the abrasions, and how you did the impact drills. So if you get a chance, you could go watch this on YouTube. It's an old video, so there, of course, it's in grainy, but it's from Min and Motos, a company out of Canada. And the video hadn't received a lot of views. I guess a lot of people didn't want to understand how this all came to be. But for your own curiosity, I would recommend that you go see this, get a chance to look at this video. This video is old, it's grainy because it was produced in 1997, and of course we didn't have high res then, so we were using the old square TVs. So you can go look at this interview and it'll help you get a basis of how we lead into the European norm standard of 13.595. The EN 13.595 standard basically evolved from the 1990s to 2000s, and it basically governed protective equipment for racers and law enforcement. And the general categories with the standards that it created was EN 13595-1, which was the general requirements on how to, conduct different various standards of testing. And then the abrasion resistance test on how to conduct the abrasion test. And then on -3 was the burst strength on the seam, to the material itself. How would it burst through the material? How long would that take? Also the seams. And then you have impact cut test. They would basically cut the material a little bit and then pull it apart to see how far it would rip. And if it would rip at all. If you could cut a piece of material with some scissors and then try to rip it by hand and it doesn't go any further, then that's pretty strong. But that later moved into EN, European norm 17092. Now that basically was published in 2019 and became the newest public standards that we reference. And we kind of shift focused from professional motorcycle riders and law enforcement to the need of the publics. And that was, basically in essence due to the market. A lot of the standards, 13.595 was really too strict for people to jump into that. So it became really, really difficult. Well, anyway, the newer standards, of EN 17092 were classified in like groupings of triple A being the highest protection. It was basically equal to that of what level 2 under the EN 595 standard used to mean, but I know a lot of this doesn't mean anything, so I'm going to try to rush through this part. But anyway, you have triple A, which is the highest protection possible for abrasions, because right now we're dealing with abrasions, sliding. And then you had double A, which was mid-level protection. That's pretty good for just riding around the neighborhood and maybe some highway riding. Then you had basic, protection, which was pretty much just low speeds and things and falling down off your bike. Then you had abrasions only, which is B, is abrasion only garments. There are no protectors inside these garments. So it was based just solely on the abrasion only, no other added protection. Then you had the impact protectors, which were basically, like I showed you with my white jacket, it was basically a jacket that held protective pads, but the material itself wasn't abrasion resistant at all. And then, then we went from there to they needed to make more specific standards and formulate them and bring them together to each individual product itself. Elbows are different than knee, is different than shoulder, than back. And so they created some more standards to regulate that. And that's where we lead into the additional standards of EN 1621-1. And this has to do with protectors for your joints. And that was basically your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, your hips. Then dash 2 standard was protectors for your back and spine. Dash 3 was the standards used for chest protectors, and dash 4 was for inflatables, inflatable type protection. And so, as you can see, we kind of had all these different standards, and it gets confusing at times as to what they all meant. And so we're going to need to keep our focal point on this, basically just two of the standards, EN 17092 and EN 1621-1. These are what we want to focus on. These are abrasion and basic elbow, shoulder, and type protection. We're not going to deal with the back and gloves and boots and all those. Those are all have their own standards as well, as we've covered. But we're going to stick with this, and I don't want to make this a real long video, so I'm going to try to go through this pretty quick. So we're going to go from that to what I always say, dress for the slide. So if we're going to talk about the two different things, let's talk about abrasion first, then we'll go into the pads, the armor. So when we get into the abrasion, we're going to dress for the slide. And that's what we always say, dress for the slide, not the ride. So here you'll be able to see us testing like a single A protected garment with a CE rating of A will let you slide for 2.5 seconds. At 52 feet is about the maximum distance. These are guesstimates. Okay, double A will allow you to slide on a pavement surface at 5.2 seconds of slide at 150 feet. Now that's a good slide. Triple A will allow you to slide on a surface for 6 seconds at 229 feet. Now that's a pretty good distance, but boy, you're going to feel some heat. And then again, we talked about previously, the AAA plus is technically not a rating, but it's what some manufacturers are now adding the plus just so they can basically say their garment is better than AAA. It goes above AAA standards. And at that, you can slide for 6.7 seconds at 301 feet. Now, that is some serious sliding. But I wanted to go a little further and say, okay, everybody, the Chinese knockoffs, everybody and their brother is making some type of product with something. And who do I go to? It's really hard, but there are some leading brands out there in the community and in the marketplace, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in the United States. There are some leading brands that provide high quality abrasion type of gear, of jackets and pants and various things. We're not going to be talking about gloves or anything in this video, but the jackets and the pants, you'll slide across the pavement. There are some companies, and I went ahead and listed them, and we're going to talk about what kind of stands out with these companies. But these are the leading companies. If you're looking for something in abrasion, this is where you would probably buy your products from. All right, as you can see, we have Bullet, and they are textile. They deal in textile stuff, and I'm just going to run these down. You can read on the screen what they provide. Then Yuka, I guess that's how you pronounce it. They're also textiles for most of their products. Revit, and then you have Revit has a basic Dynex, ballistic type reinforcement of their materials. So you have to go read all about how they make their products. Then you have Aponistar. They do pretty good off-road gear and stuff, and Dionysus, however you pronounce it. Now, this company here, they're going to deal with leathers. There are a lot of leathers. That's where you're going to get your kangaroo leather, which is basically the strongest abrasion material on the market. It beats all of this other stuff. It beats Kevlar and everything. Believe it or not, kangaroo hide is stout. Then, of course, everybody knows about Icon. You can find that in most stores. It's pretty common in the U.S. Clem is also pretty common, but they have some, some bonuses to theirs. Is not only do they make some pretty sharp looking, materials, jackets and stuff like that, they also dealing with environmental exposures, not just your road protection. You're getting your road protection, but you're also getting your nice weather protection. You're getting, for the rain and all that, and you're also getting, abrasion protection, impact protection. They do a little bit of all. And then you have Pandomoto. Pandomoto is pretty much one of the first companies to come out with AAA plus type of material. And they got a Kevlar blend in there as they do some other things in there. You'd have to go read how all their stuff is made. And then you have Botex. Botex is got a lot of high protective abrasion products, mostly though for street riding. I mean, they have some high end, but they're dealing with like clothing as casual wear. You're just going to do your casual stuff. So now that we've kind of briefly went over the brands that you could find, we need to quickly go into the focus second part of this video, which has to do with 16-21-1, which is protectors for your elbows, your shoulders, your hips, things of that nature, and we'll cover that now. All right, under EN 1621-1, we're really focusing on knee, elbow, shoulder, and hip protection. That is the primary focus. These little rubber pads that look, generic or whatever, but these are the things that we're talking about. Protective joint armor is how they classify it under that standard. And you have two levels. You have level 1 and level 2. Now, you also have two types. You have type A and type B. This is confusing to some people because they seem to think that type A means female and type B means male, but that's not true. It has to do with sizing. Type A is narrow. Now, we're not talking about thickness. We're talking about the size of the pad. It's narrow. And then type B is a little wider, but type B is the default. That's the standard that most people will deal with. When you order something, usually it comes with type B. Now, whether it's a level 1 or level 2, that depends on what you order, but it would be type B. Now, let's talk a little bit about, I know you've seen it probably by now if you did any research about Fortnite video that they put out, and this gentleman here, he did a video of the pads that created so much controversy. I mean, to this date, it's got 2.3 million views, and it's only a year old, and it's got a lot of views. But it had to do with should you wear pads, should you not wear pads. Now, in his video, he talks about basically he doesn't wear certain pads. He does wear pads, but he doesn't wear like the elbow and the shoulder and all that because he's determined that in his video, again, I will provide a link for his video. He basically talks about the safety of the video of that. He also was misunderstood in the video. I guess that's what created all the controversy. And I don't want to get all detailed about it. You can go check out that video. I provide the link in here on that video. But he's basically talking about how they tested the material, how the energy being transferred, after it makes contact with the pad, the energy that absorbs through the pad is still enough to shatter bones and all that stuff. So that's why his question basically is it really for riding and crashing, or is it for, you know, tipping over a motorcycle? Well, we can all argue a bunch of points. I can tell you a motorcycle helmet is only so good. You hit a wall, a brick wall at 70 miles an hour, your motorcycle helmet serves no purpose. That's just a fact. If you fly over and make impact with an animal on the road and you fly over this handlebars and you land on the road at 75, 80 miles an hour, and from that height of flying over the motorcycle, I'm gonna assure you that the shoulder pads and elbow pads, I don't think they're gonna do much of anything. But I'm not endorsing you not wearing them. I am of the mindset that if it came with the protective equipment, the protective padding, wear it. But the controversy is stirred based on the study, the way Dr. Woods conducted the study. And let me go ahead and just go ahead and walk you through just the basic studies of like the elbow pads and all that, so that you can get an understanding of why this guy in the video was hesitant or maybe reluctant about certain pads. He didn't say he doesn't wear all pads, and he didn't tell you not to wear pads. So let's not get it all messed up. So let's look at this test on how you do the impact joint test. And this is how it was explained through the Cambridge video that I talked to you about Dr. Woods. So here's how it breaks down. All right, basically what happens on the energy test is a weight is put up of 5 kilograms, and it is set high above the pad itself at 1 meter for a 1 meter drop. Now, that will generate 50 joules of energy when it comes down and falls. So this is basically the premise of the test. The weight starts to fall, and as it comes down and makes impact, how much energy, because there's 50 joules of energy running, how much energy is passed through? 34 kilonewtons or 20 kilonewtons? 34 kilonewtons is level 1, and 20 kilonewtons is level 2. That is the meat of the entire thing. However, I'd like to use the baseball analogy, and that is, if you took a baseball player, a professional pitcher who throws a ball at 100 miles an hour, the baseball at 100 miles an hour, that baseball would travel and make impact on a batter at roughly 270 to 290 pounds, depending on how you calculate it, but it basically comes out to 1.2 kilonewtons. So if that baseball was to hit the batter on the shoulder, you could see some of the energy would be transferred into the shoulder. Impact would still hurt, but the energy would be transferred into the shoulder. But if that baseball was to hit your elbow, where there is just a very thin layer of skin and then bone, that impact would create a lot more than 1.2 kilonewtons. It'd more than likely get up to the 7 kilonewtons. And what does all that mean? Got to figure out what kilonewtons are. Well, I'm not going to get into a science lesson or anything like that, but the bottom line is what the gentleman was saying in his video was basically that these pads don't absorb enough energy because it doesn't take that much kilonewtons to break a bone. So you're talking about 290 pounds of pressure still going through with just a baseball. But the way these tests are conducted, 34 kilonewtons would pass to a level, to level 1. But if it's under 20 kilonewtons passing through, that would suffice as the best protection. That is a lot of energy still passing through. But the study wasn't saying it was based on real world impacts. It was based on some kind of balancing act of how can we develop a standard that would show a reduction of energy. It never said that these pads were going to reduce enough energy to stop anything from being broken. That was never alluded to in Dr. Wood's study. So that's important to talk about. Were these pads basically designed for tip over and basic fall down, fall off your bike protection? Or were they based for actual crashes, motorcycle crashes? You be the debate, you debate that all you want to, and you can debate those videos. You can go to Dr. Wood's videos, see how he did the test. You can also go to Fortnine's video and listen to what the man said and make your own conclusion. I'm just saying that if it's got pads, wear them. Nothing else, maybe the pad will give you a second more worth of slide time if it penetrates through. Do I believe the pads will actually protect you from hitting a car? Probably not. Maybe if I hit it at 10 miles or 15, no, not 15 miles an hour. No. Bottom line is these pads are designed to reduce the energy, but they're not preventing any of the energy from falling through. So that's the meat of that. When you watch Dr. Woods and you watch the video during that interview, you will notice that the amount of energy passing through the pads, even Dr. Woods clearly acknowledges that that amount of energy is still devastating, even in his test. So it doesn't suggest that the pads are protecting, it just suggests that they are absorbing some energy. Now, for some, that will be misleading, and I understand you can have that debated another time, but I'd like to now go into how to read labels, how to read the CE labels, which are sometimes confusing. So let's look at there. As you can see here, this is a basic CE label, and you can see from the very first designation, it's a motorcycle, and that tells you that this product is specific to a motorcycle apparel. Okay, and then as you go to the next part, you'll see the number. See the EN 1621-1. That is the number. Also, 2012 is the year. So that is the standard and the current standard and the year in which the standard was approved. Then you go down here below and you see the E/K. That stands for elbow and knees. The body part which it protects. It's designed and has tested to protect. And you see that there's several categories. You've got elbows, knees, shoulders, hips. Then you have knee and upper legs. You have L for the front leg, B or FB for full back. Then you have CB for center back, LB for lumbar, and C for chest. So that's what that designation means. Then you look over to the right of that, and it'll tell you what type of pad this is. Is this a type B? Which, remember, we're talking about size. This is the area in which it covers. B is standard size, and then A is smaller. It's more narrow. Not thickness, has nothing to do with thickness. And no, it does not imply male or female. Then you have the CE level rating for the pad itself. You know, the amount of energy it absorbs. Remember, 2 is the best. So 1 is the low, it doesn't absorb as much energy or prevent as much energy from coming through as a level 2 does. So you see it that it'll be 2 on this label. Then the next thing is T+. Now, not all labels have this, but T+ basically means it's certified for use in temperatures up to 104 degrees. And then, of course, a T- will tell you how many degrees down, which means it's certified for temperatures down to 14 degrees. Then you have the manufacturer's model name. This is the name of the model or whatever they want to call it. And then, below that is elbow and /knee, but that's not always on the tag. Then you see this indicates that the little icon right here with the little book. It's actually supposed to be like a little manual of instructions. It indicates that certification is included in the product. So when you check the tags, they're attached to your tags, they're in the pockets or whatever the case may be. That lets you know that the CE ratings, certifications, and everything are provided with the apparel that you have in your possession. Then down here, this is the original directive. And we remember at the beginning of the video, we talked about directive and how all this slowly came to be. This is the directive that was passed in 1993 to establish motorcycle apparel safety in Europe. And that's what this was all about, is the safety standards in Europe. So hopefully that helps you understand the tags a little bit. Now I'd like to just quickly move into the final section, and this is going to be about deception, misleading information, what I think truly is a play on words. And I'm going to give you some ideas of how deceptive some of these companies are. Now in Europe, in order to pass, you have to, go through all these steps. You have to use the correct terminology. But in the United States and other countries, manufacturers, they don't even send their stuff out for testing. Many of them don't even want to do it because it immediately shoots the price tag up. If you get CE ratings and stuff, your price tags are going to go up, but that also means the material stuff is better. So let's talk about some of the deceptive tactics that you will see all day long, constantly on the internet. I mean, as soon as you research anything that has to do with a protective pad or anything that has to do with protective clothing, motorcycle clothing, your feeds will be inundated with nothing but that from there on out. And you will see tons and tons and tons of this. So let's go ahead and go into deceptive practices. All right, first and foremost, there's going to be a lot of products that you're going to hear that say, our product is CE tested. Okay, CE tested doesn't mean anything. Did the product pass? If it did, why didn't you just say it was CE approved? Another one is our product complies to the highest CE standards. But if you comply to the highest CE standards, why isn't it CE approved? Our product meets all CE requirements. That's a good one. If it meets all CE requirements, it would be rated. It would be CE approved. Our product is CE compliant. Well, compliant, you're playing with a word. Why don't you say approved? Because you legally can't say CE approved if it's not CE rated. And then you go into our product is CE level 2 approved. Now, the reason this is always a misleading is because our product, you're buying a jacket, our product is CE level 2 approved. Well, we already know that level 1 and level 2 has to do with padding. So they're kind of leading you to believe that the entire garment reached some kind of level 2 status but that has to do with padding. So that garment more than likely just has level 2 padding in it, and that's it. Our product's made with CE level 2 protection. Again, they lead you to believe that the entire product is CE level 2 protection. It's not, there's no such thing. It's the padding, the pads, the armor is CE level 2 possibly, but the entire garment is not. Our product exceeds CE level 2 protection. Exceeds. There's no exceeding level 2 protection. There is level 1 and level 2. At one point they did have a level 3, but they did away with it. There's level 1 and level 2. That's it. Now, you say you exceed level 2. Well, what are you basing it on? What test did you put that through, and who certified that? Then you get into the abrasion. Our product is abrasion resistant. I always like this one because you find that everywhere, especially the Chinese knockoffs today. Always want to say abrasion resistant. Based on what abrasion standard are we talking about? Our product uses a special abrasion resistant and fill in the blank material, special abrasion resistant um, armor, special abrasion resistant, you name it, whatever you want to fill in there. What's so special? Why aren't you identifying what your stuff is? What is it? What is it made of? And that's another thing. I gave you a list earlier of things of certain products that what they're made of. You can research that yourself and know what the top products are out there. But that's how they get you. They get you with this playing of words. Our product protects you from abrasion. To what level? Again, you can't just say our product protects you from abrasion and not tell us how you come to that conclusion. Abrasion on what? If I hit 60 grit sandpaper and I slide for 2 feet, well, it's abrasion resistant. If I fall off my motorcycle and I hit the ground, I'm not going to get scuffs on me. But if I'm riding down the road at 35 miles an hour, I will. I mean, to what level is your abrasion protection? Our product does not identify the materials. Okay, when a product does not identify the materials it used, that's a red flag. That's definitely jumps right in your face as a red flag. Product is produced to the highest safety standards. Whose standards? What do you consider the highest safety standards? That's a play on words that leads you to believe that our product is the best on the market. There's nothing like it because we have the highest safety standards. What are your standards? Product is constructed with our proprietary materials. No, no, no. You don't get to just say proprietary materials and not identify the materials. Is it a Kevlar blend? Did you weave it with different types of super materials or super fabrics? What exactly did you put together? You can't just say that. And this one might shock you, but look at the label. Does it say made in China? If it does, there's a 95% or higher chance that your garment's really not anything. It'll help you if you fall off your motorcycle. It'll help you if you're at a low speed, maybe a slow speed. Look to see what they put down as the material. You'll find that most of the products that you buy, I'll give you an example. If you pay $50 for a jacket or $75 for a jacket, it's not really going to come with much of anything, but it might be good for riding around in your neighborhood, 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour. You might be okay, but it's not interstate worthy. It's not highway worthy. It's so made in China is the thing. So when you see those little things like this, and these play on words, which is very annoying, this is what you need to focus on. If somebody says, I have this for sale, and it's, I'm selling you this highly rated jacket, CE certified, level 3 rating, level 3A rating, 3A rating for $75 brand new. You're not getting a level 3 for $75. So does price always indicate something? Well, price, if they're selling you a CE triple A rated garment and they're telling you it's under $100 or something like that, I'm sorry. Somebody's doing some finagling because you're being bamboozled. You're not going to buy it for no $100. If somebody's selling you a double A jacket for $75, nope, sorry, not happening. So go to the brands that I listed in this video so that you would be on the right course. But also to be on the right course, do your own research. See what the vendors, what the company says. When you go and purchase it off of whatever your favorite website is, read and see what the materials are made of and how thick are the materials. See, a lot of times they'll say it's made of a certain type of material, like Kevlar or whatever, and it may only be a couple spots that are made of Kevlar. Not enough to do anything. It might not even be the elbows or nothing that has Kevlar in it. It might be you could put it around your collar. They could put just a little trim around their collar and they could say our Kevlar made jackets. That jacket is not all Kevlar. That's misleading. So I just want you to stay focused on when you purchase in protective equipment, protective gear, and understand what these things are. Now, me personally, I think the dirt bike world and stuff with the hard shell type of protective gear, I think that's better than any street gear when it comes down to it, because when you go, you know, off-road, the adventure riders, they have all of this gear on and it's light, it's pretty light actually, but it's got a hard shell where things ricochet off of it. I would feel much safer in most of that gear than I would in the current gear that we have for street bike riding. Um, but again, they're hitting trees, they're falling down, they're jumping ramps and dirts, and they're biting the dust quite a few times and stuff. So they know all about that, and it's holding up pretty good. But they're also not riding 80, 90 miles an hour down the interstate. So would I feel safe with their particular gear going 95 miles an hour down the interstate? Yes, if I hit something, and when I land, I might feel better that I would land safer, but I don't feel like I would be abrasion safe. I think that plastic shells and stuff would just evaporate from road rash, would just disintegrate. But that's, again, my opinion. So I hope you found this video informative. It may have not been all that entertaining, but I hope I was able to clear up abrasion and joint protection of the 4 areas that we were talking about. Now remember, when you get into the back protectors and all that, they're tested differently. That's why they have their own standard. So there's more joule of downward force applied to some of those in different angles, different ways they do it to get their rating. That's why they're not all grouped into the same thing. So anyway, until next time, just live your life. Snowee and I would like to thank you for watching our channel, and we have 6 different categories of videos, so we ask that you help support our small channel by simply going to Cruiseman's Garage and subscribing to his. We are members of the Cruiseman's Garage 100,000 subscriber campaign. So help us get Cruiseman to 100,000 subscribers.